All right, this is reality. You're a first home buyer and you're priced out. You're priced out because interest rates have gone up or the prices have gone up in your suburb. What are your options after that? Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Good morning.
Zanthony,
Priced out.
the,
What?
the real estate Madonna.
Oh, here we go. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, she's cool.
All for a
She's
bit
cool.
of fun.
Zan, this is a little bit close to the heart for you, and it is reality for people out there. And I often have this conversation. It's, you sort of made your plan. You know what you're going to buy. You know where you're going to buy. Time goes by, and you get priced out for whatever reason, whether it's interest rates or whether it's prices going up, and you think, "Damn you, Sydney! Damn you, DY! I'm taking my swag and going somewhere else. So I'm going to buy, out of
Wherever
Sydney."
it might be. It's true. It does kind of hit close to heart. 6 months ago, I embarked on a journey with you, Mark. You were actually the catalyst for me even thinking about purchasing my first home. And as a beaches girl, born and raised, of course, I would love to be able to buy in the Northern Beaches. And rewind 6 months ago, it was all quite promising when prices were relatively stable. There wasn't a huge influx like we did see in 2021 with the huge prices. And I was able to afford a little one bed or studio around the area. Fast forward to now, when I finally have some kind of finance approval over the line, I can no longer afford to buy around here. So it is a little bit disheartening. And then I went away with friends a couple of weekends ago up to the Central Coast and saw just how beautiful other areas outside of Sydney are, for example, Avoca. And that kind of got the brain thinking, well, if I can't afford to buy where I would love to in DY, do I look outside of the Northern Beaches to somewhere along the Central Coast like Avoca, where a lot of Sydney-siders are actually moving towards to purchase a house that they could pay for, whereas you could use that same money and only afford a unit here in the Northern Beaches.
That's the dilemma.
Yes, dilemma. and it is a huge consideration.
How are you going with that?
Well, it is a really big consideration. I never really saw myself as being a rent investor, so buying an investment property just to rent out. I'm approaching, the older stages of life. I'd kind of like to be able to have something to call home that's mine and be able to set up my life there and not be a renter and formulate, renovate, do whatever I want to my own home, having something that's my own. So it has been a little bit toying up in my mind, so to say, with what to do. And I'd love to be able to stay around here. I don't particularly see myself moving up to the Central Coast.
Now you brought this problem to the table last Thursday. So
yeah,
you brought this
so
problem
sitting
to the table last
with
Thursday
Wayne
with Wayne
Hughes.
Hughes.
I did, and we're just going through what's next on my journey. Is it, where am I at with my property journey? Am I ready to buy now? Where am I looking? And then the topic of moving up to the Central Coast did come to light. So like I said, let's just say, for example, I have $600,000 in my little kitty. I could use that to purchase a studio around the Northern Beaches, or on the flip side, I could effectively buy a house elsewhere up the coast. And Avoca was the first suburb that did come to mind, purely because that's where I had just been spending some time with friends.
What was our response, and what did you think
and
of it?
And it is a beautiful... So we brought up just what Avoca prices are doing. So they have, over the last 10 years, had 150% growth, so they're pretty high. Will they get even higher? That's questionable. Whereas around DY, you've had that 75% growth, meaning there is still room for improvement and they still could continue to rise. So if I purchase now, in the next 10 years, what would it be worth? Whereas suburbs like Avoca, they've already had that exponential growth. Can it continue to grow even further? On top of that, Avoca is very much like what do we call it? It's kind of where the more elite purchase a home for their little Sydney getaway. It's just a holiday house.
Yeah, and I think I like what Wayne was saying, which was a business consultant we use. I like what he was saying, the practicality of time, that if you are nested with family, friends, work and whatever in somewhere like DY, for example, and you are going to be travelling that time, that's, why are people, in those sort of areas always travelling into the Sydney CBD, and are you, is that time going to be worth it for the next 10, 20, 30 years of your life? I personally, these are the views I was saying with Zanthony, is I think I'm surprised that somewhere like DY, houses did really well through COVID.
Yeah.
And units didn't do really well. No one really wants to admit it, but if you look at most core unit suburbs, they only had about 70% capital growth the last 10 years. 4 of those years was COVID. So they never really went up a lot in value. They didn't stretch their legs. Whereas I think housing areas, where there's a lot of houses, house areas, they've had about as much as 150% capital growth over 10 years, and on average about 120 to 130%. So I do think houses have stretched their legs. As a matter of fact, I know houses have stretched their legs. The gap between unit areas, or units in general, and houses in general has widened. So that jump has become harder for people to go from that unit to the house. And for that reason, I think I did like DY for someone like yourself, because I think there is a little bit more potential for capital growth. Here's the reality. You could buy in a suburb, and I'm not suggesting Avoca. I don't want anyone to get angry with me because I'm picking on Avoca, but I'm suggesting that you could buy somewhere in the Central Coast, and I have seen this, where there's actually been no capital growth for a very, very, very long time. And then people have looked at somewhere like Sydney, or DY, and they've went, oh my God, I've witnessed the last 5 or 10 years what this suburb's done and what that suburb's done. I should have done it. I sometimes see that with Queensland as well. Even though they've stretched their legs and they've done well lately, I'm talking historically 10, 20, 30 years, Sydney's always smashed as a state, any other state. Sydney, I'm talking metro.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, it is very interesting. I suppose when you are in a situation like me and you are priced out of the area that you want to buy, you do start looking at these areas that you're not overly familiar with, that you have seen have had this amazing growth in the last 10 years, but will it continue to grow? I'm not sure. And is it worth taking that risk in an area that I don't really know, just for the purposes and sake of getting into the housing market?
I also think the first home, the biggest myth around that I find with first home buyers is that you cannot rent the asset out because you've taken a wad of money from the government by not paying stamp duty or paying only a 5% deposit. But it's not the case at all. So very, very clear, I would like to be with everyone out there. If you do want to rent out your first home, you can. You can rent it out within 12 months, and you can rent it out after 12 months for as long as you want, as long as there is shown a clear intention that you bought it as a first home. And they would generally regard that intention of, within that first 12 months, you are living in it for a period that's deemed reasonable. So just be conscious about that. And the reason I mention that with you, Zanthony, is wherever you buy, you do have that ability to get that first home buyer grant, and you do have that ability to just simply rent it out forever, and enjoy that for the first home buyer benefits. There's a little trick within the first 12 months that you've got to do, but that then opens up a lot of other places, because I automatically think first home buyer, I've got to live there, I've got to be, it's got to be close to my work, it's got to be close to this, it's got to be my first home.
Yeah.
Some people may even think they're going to have to live in it there, the entire duration. Not the case.
Okay. Well, that is reassuring, and it does help. I suppose thinking about a first home, you do get all these stresses, and you get up in your head and you're not really sure what to do. So it's nice to have a bit of a sounding board, to be able to level that out and help guide you through. So Lisa says, I bought for a first home buyer and she's now currently rented it out. She will move back into the property.
Yeah. So you can it just helps you out with cash flow, purely, and that's a big thing. So Xanth, do you think you're going to stick it out and buy something smaller in DY, or do you think you're going to disappear and with your money and take it to Avoca?
Well, that is the $600,000 question, isn't it? Look, I'd like to start Northern Beaches centric and then start to grow out from there. So it could be towards Mossman. It could be up in the Central Coast as well.
Yeah.
And it is important to be close to your friends instead of commuting all the time. I've never really been much of a commuter. Like I said earlier in the segment, I am born and raised in the Northern Beaches, and I've always worked, if not in the Northern Beaches, in the city, which is an easy commute. I don't want to be spending a 3-hour round trip in the car every single day. That's a bit much. That's a waste of time.
All right, Xanth, that's your update on first home buying. I can't wait for the update that when you say I've bought something and I've bought something on the Northern Beaches.
Dear, I can't wait either. I might streak around the office.
That's going to be unbelievable when you do buy something. When you streak around the office,
Yeah.
But it's a journey, and it's a journey that we've been on since Dot with you, and people can start to see now if they've been tracking your journey. It's not bloody easy.
It's really not, and I'm happy to share all of my experiences with everyone to try and encourage other people to get on board as well, and to reassure them that you're not alone. I'm feeling the exact same stresses, the exact same pain, and in all honesty, it's stressful, it's confusing, it's hard, but together we can do this.
Absolutely. Xanth, have a great day. Lisa Kramer, thanks for tuning in from the UK.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you for sending in those little messages, and everyone have a great day.
See you, legends. Bye.